Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org. Consequence and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here. For checking out the series, you know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. I am so excited to have her back on. She's one of my all-time favorite artists. Ani DiFranco is here. Hello.
Hello, Kyle.
It's great
Nice
to
to see you. I
It's
can
great to
actually
see you
see
again.
you.
Yeah. And with a brand new record, Unprecedented Shit, which is
Oh,
so much
wow,
fun
you
to say.
just went ahead and said it. Nice.
I didn't do
Thank you.
I don't know how to say the exclamation point instead of the
Yeah,
I. Right. I don't know
nor do I.
how that works. Um this is such a cool record. It's a different record. And I want to get into it, but I know I catch you in this moment too, that you're not just promoting this record, but you're still out with Hadestown right now, right?
I am. I'm in New York doing 8 shows a week on Broadway.
So I just saw it for the first time, the traveling version.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
it came through Louisville, and I said at that point, I was like, "This might be the most mind-blowingly cool production I've ever seen in my life." You were part of the original. How do you say it? But, because Anais wrote it, but then you were part of this original album, and now here you are again playing Persephone again. What's this experience been like returning?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real full circle journey for me. I mean, I don't know what it was, like 10, 15 years ago, Anais sent me a cassette tape,
Right.
people. Um, of these, yeah, she had this concept of this show that, it was a recording of her and her friends in Vermont putting on a proto version of Hadestown, and she wanted to make it into an album. So we did, and released it on Righteous Babe, and she didn't stop there. About 10 years of working and pushing and evolving it past then, it ended up on Broadway. And I agree with you. It's so cool. It's just the coolest show. It's very radical, in a subterranean way. I think it's a show that anybody can go to and enjoy, but should you choose to, you know, go deep with it, it's kind of endless.
Yeah. So you're a few weeks in, you said, how long are you staying on? Do you know that yet? Is this kind of open-ended?
No, I signed up for 6 months, which I'm not sure if I will survive. But if I if I do, I will be here through the end of June.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's so cool when we saw the news. I was like, wow, what a cool little moment this is, for this whole story. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's really great being a part of the show, and a part of the project once again. I I actually got asked to create a theater project myself a little while ago, and so part of my reason for saying yes and coming and being a part of Hadestown on a daily basis was just because I realized I don't know anything
mm,
about musicals and theater, and let me go learn how it's done and when it's done well. So I'm here partially just being a student.
yeah. Well, what a cool most people, I don't think they can do that the same way. So what a great, little opportunity that is. So at the same time, as I mentioned, you've got this new album. And it's such, like, we've heard you do lots of different sounds through the years, and this is the next chapter of that, the next era. But how did this record start? Because I guess from what I understand, it doesn't even start in the typical way because you're working with a producer for the first time too.
Yeah, it does really feel like the first time I've had a producer um in that deep sense of like somebody sitting in the design room with me and thinking all the thoughts right down to the song order, after it's all made, and yeah, I just knew that I didn't want to be, I didn't want the buck to stop here for every last choice, and because that's sort of the way I've rolled for dozens of albums over dozens of years, and I'm over it. Been there, done that. I want partners and collaboration. So, and I also just had this idea that I wanted to utilize the world of machines in a way that I haven't, but I've been longing to, when I make a record, because I'm not a gearhead and I don't have all of these new gizmos that are out there more every day. I don't even know what they are, what they're called, or how I just go in and I play my songs in
Mhm.
front of microphones and with my band. And so it's basically a recording of me and my band playing my songs. Maybe I overdub some stuff, but it's very much based in the old school musicians playing instruments idea of music. Now, of course, music recording has evolved well beyond that, and where musicians playing instruments is like one ingredient
Mhm.
in how you make records now. And I've been wanting to explore all these other ways. So I was looking for a producer, a person to work with who could open up those other worlds for me and this record. And I found it in BJ Burton. He's just a complete freak who lives in a spaceship surrounded by knobs and dials. And I so the process was just I record the songs at home, sometimes just voice and guitar. Sometimes I would overdub this or that and send them to him. And he, a lot of these sounds over the course of the record that people think are keyboards or this or that, or it's all manipulations of my voice and guitar,
Wow.
mostly in the hands of BJ. So
Now, did that change how you approached the actual foundation of songwriting at all?
not really. I mean, I think the songs came as they do in my world, from spleen to paper to the the air around me. um but once I documented them and then put them in the hands of BJ, he just created these sort of new and unprecedented soundscapes, out of my organic
Uh-huh.
playing.
I love the idea of those machines too, because when you were saying that, I was thinking of like what it looked like when Pete Townsend was trying to accomplish quadrophenia and the big computers that existed back then, or even when the Radiohead guys would be plugging in the wires on stage, to manipulate. And now we
Yeah.
have this. I was even talking to a friend, a guitarist friend of mine who I'd played with years and years ago, like 20 years ago. And we were talking, he goes, the kids today don't even use amplifiers. And I do all these interviews and I'm like, what do you mean? Like it didn't occur to me. It's like, no, it's a plugin, man. It's just everybody's using plugins. It's like that's
Yeah, it's crazy.
crazy.
It's all
Yeah.
in the box. But I mean, one of the cool things about BJ, I mean, the coolest thing is his ears and his creativity. But also in terms of gear, he's one that goes well beyond plugins, and just doing it all in the computer. He has tape machines and he has all these analog synths, and he has, all these different eras and kinds of gear that he employs to do his weirdness and filtering and sampling and manipulating.
Mhm. Well, it was of course it's immediately evident on Baby Roe, which was the first single released on this. And hearing that, first you get this like, wow, how cool does this sound? And immediately you hear those words, which has always been Ani DiFranco, give me the words. What are we talking about? What are we singing about? What are we fighting for? And I know that, this is an album that there's plenty to fight for in a time where there's plenty to fight for. Class and wealth all over this, but especially that track right there, coming out at a time like I went back and I was thinking about Play God, which you released a few years ago, which is still one of my all-time favorite tracks of yours, by the way. Um, and does is I feel like this is an obvious question. Is this a continuation of that story? And
Yeah,
why?
yeah, absolutely. um well, it's another song. A lot of songs over many years and albums for me have their seeds in books. I'm a reader, and my life has been changed by books many times over. So anyway, I read this book called The Family Roe by Josh Prager, and he goes way deep into the historical backstory behind Roe v. Wade. Who, how did that happen? Who were the people and the players and the stories? And it's a really fascinating book. I think it speaks well beyond issues of women's civil rights or reproductive freedom to really American politics in general, how things changed and got manipulated. Um, anyway, one of the characters that you encounter in this book is the child that was born to Jane Roe, quote unquote, Norma McCorvey, who was fighting for the right to have an abortion in Texas, and then, as we know, went to the Supreme Court and finally earned the right to legal abortion along with women everywhere. But that process took longer than the gestation of a baby. So this baby was born in the process and given up for adoption. So this Baby Roe didn't know her role in history until she was an adult. Of course, the anti-choice contingent was searching for this person because they felt, okay, here's our ultimate spokesperson. Here's going to be a very compelling spokesperson for our cause. She was eventually tracked down and cornered in a parking lot, and this is how she learned about her birth mother and her role in that important moment. And anyway, compellingly, Baby Roe remains pro-choice, even though she understands her story now. So, and I feel that would be true of me too. And what I tried to put in that song that I wrote, Baby Roe, was that my thinking behind why, and my feeling, my knowing behind my understanding that this life that I'm leading in this body with this name and identity is one of so many, that consciousness, light, spirit, God, energy, soul embodies and re-embodies many, many times in many, many forms. And we're not wedded to any one moment or form. Or my understanding that the interest of a fetus cannot be opposed to its mother, that they are one, that in fact you and I right now, Kyle, are one. This is the elusive truth that can elude us so much as we live in our bodies and egos, and we get very misled, I think, by life in the body. But really, we are one, and so I in that song, I just wanted to try to zoom out and look at this abortion debate and women's reproductive freedom from a wider lens, a more spiritual understanding of non-duality and the unified plane of consciousness, which is really who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah. I read almost you almost said it again, but somewhere you were talking about the song and you just said life is infinite, in fact. And I actually teared up a little bit. Not something I expected just from that line right there, because it's not something, it's something that's been said before. It's something I've read before, but to hear it in this context, it really touched me. How you presented this, and especially, it's always used as a hot button issue to fundraise off of, when we know by polling that the majority of Americans are pro-choice, or at least some version of it. But for this also to come just at the same time where Arizona is doing their thing, as they tend to do, you've always been poignant, and this is unfortunately just one of those times where you're right on the money with every bit of it. It's also a great song, by the way.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that Josh Prager's book speaks to very well, is that it becoming a political device this abortion issue, was a strategy choice. It
Mhm.
was a brainchild of certain people, and they've been at a certain time, and they've been rolling with it quite effectively since then. But prior to that time, you can learn in that book about how uh, whether you had an R or a D next to your name did not designate your stance on abortion,
Mhm.
nor whether you were a religious person or not. Um, there was a whole coalition of ministers and rabbis who, before Roe v. Wade, formed a network to help women get safe abortions. It was very nuanced and very individual and personal how you came to this issue and how you felt about it. And it was just a very different world, and it was a political strategy and calculation to turn it into the world we live in now.
Yeah. And of course, once that's put in play, even though you know the nefarious reasons, as you're saying, why it's there, you have to play then, right? Like we have to be a part of that conversation suddenly in these ways. I do, especially in election year too, and seeing, you know, big pop stars, Olivia Rodrigo, Billie Eilish, I think even Taylor, are being more proactive at this moment about this, to get out there. Like it feels like that becomes extra important in this year. But
Oh,
it's just nice to see pop
absolutely.
stars doing that because that wasn't
Oh,
always the case.
amen, brother. I mean, speaking to young people and telling them this is your society and this is the power that you hold for nonviolent revolution. It's called the ballot box. And if you show up and you use it, you can run things, you can change things. And I think fighting disillusionment and apathy in young people is the greatest cause we have. Just so artists that speak to young people, if they can convince them that voting is meaningful, I think all of humanity and life on earth shall be saved.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And and look at it, even some of these other songs on here, New Bible. I mean, men should stand down, women should give birth. The only has two words, Mother Earth. I know I'm skimming through here, but even in the knowing, you know, I did want to ask about that. Harness the power of identity without being limited by it. Could you talk more about that? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of connected with what we were talking about a minute ago of who are we really?
Hmm.
We think we're this identity in this story that we construct elaborately, and then we, tribalize based upon that, and we find us and we find them and we play out these dramas. But when we die, for instance, when we reintegrate, we shed all of that and we go, oh, wait, there's no us, there's no them. It's
Hmm.
all us, and us supersedes the human species consciousness. We are all one organism here on this planet, in this universe. So I guess, in a few songs on this record, or, there's sort of these interlocking themes that run through the songs and the journey of it. And yeah, I just wanted to speak to this idea of identity, which we are so invested in now, I think, culturally. And, especially with young people in their two-dimensional screen-based lives, identity has become preeminent, the construction of it, the performance of it, the everything. It's like a full-time job now to establish exactly what you want to be called, and all the adjectives and all the descriptors and what and as a child of the 70s, I recognize that identity politics are certainly were and still in many senses essential for liberation, for understanding who you are and where you fit, and finding your community. But I guess I also wonder and see now that it can become the cage itself. What was what was the ball that started rolling to liberate us, to bring the diversity into the discourse, also can become the cage itself, if we're not careful. So I guess, in a lot of ways on this record, I'm just speaking to that, like, use identity and adjectives and descriptors, but don't be used by them.
Right. And to quote a couple more of your lyrics, I have beliefs that might change, which is important that a person knows when to grow and how to grow. And then when you say, I am not my body, I am not my mind, and the things at hand, it's not a question. I'm just telling you, like, I love how you paint that. I love what these songs say. And as usual, I do think they're important for the conversation.
Well, thank you for really listening. I'm It makes me really happy that you're picking up on those things that I'm trying to speak to, because I just feel so deeply about having us all step back and take a breath together
Yeah.
and recognize ourselves in each other, and the incredible vast unity that it really underlies all of it.
And you can dance to it.
And you can dance to it, baby.
I should say that it's a fun record. I mean, these
Oh,
are heavy
cool.
topics. These are heavy songs. It's a very fun record to listen to at the same time.
Oh, love it. Yeah, great. I mean, great. I've done my job.
Congrats on this. I love talking to you so much every single time. Thank you so much for taking the time to do it once again. And congrats on the run on Hadestown. I'm hoping to see it before you finish your run. I'll be up there in New York, I know, a couple times, so I can't wait.
Awesome. Kyle, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank
Right
you.
on. And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week, new one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.